Can you believe it? Trump the board game. Yes, now you too can pretend to be one of the most richest, intelligent, and influential people in the world. Just like Trump pretends to be.
I'm really rich.
I think I have the best temperament. Everybody loves me.
I'm very highly educated. I know words. I have the best words.
The back of the box says it's like no game you've ever played before. Which is true. I've never played Monopoly Junior with half the board missing. The game was released in 1989, before Trump started looking like a melting orangutan, and before his massive string of bankruptcies and failed ventures.
And there was a homeless person sitting right outside of Trump Tower. And I remember my father pointing to him and saying, you know, that guy has $8 billion more than me, because he was in such extreme debt at that point, you know?
So it's less like you're playing as Trump himself, but rather the mandated financial attorneys placed in charge of his corporation because the courts deemed him unfit to repay his debts. You know, all the earmarks of a good businessman. And half of these properties don't even exist anymore. Trump Airline is gone. Trump Cruise Line sunk. Trump Tropical Island? Well, okay, I could see that. Like a little plastic one? It should also be noted that many properties Trump claims to own just have his name on it, like hotels and steaks. He'll probably say he'll be tough on crime because he thinks he owns the Teen Titans.
Just a couple of factual things. The steaks you showed, those aren't actually Trump steaks, right?
They're Trump. No, I buy them. We buy the same thing.
Hey, I bought this game for like $2. That means I own the rights, which makes me proud to announce the upcoming 20th anniversary edition with Trump Steaks, Trump Vodka, Trump Mortgage, and Trump Magazine. All things that didn't last more than 2 years. Because good businessman. By the way, this issue with your daughter on it, did that feature this quote?
That must be a pretty picture. You dropping to your knees.
Or this quote?
You know, it really doesn't matter what they write, as long as you've got a young and beautiful piece of
If Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her, you know.
The game is as simple as the man himself.
I know words. I have the best words.
But they give you the courtesy of 2 sets of rules. This handy quick guide, and this magnificent official rulebook, which is literally just the quick guide with big pictures. Draw a trump card from the top of the deck and add it to your hand. If you forget to draw a card before taking the next part of your turn, you are penalized and do not get to draw one. I guess that's the game version of sending out your delegate notifications out a week late. And also these invaluable words of wisdom from Trump himself. During the game, try not to reveal your total cash holdings to your opponents. That way, it will be harder for them to tell if you're cash rich or poor. Cash rich? What the hell? Everyone starts with the same amount of money. You can tell who's rich or poor by simply watching the game. If anyone points out that you don't have that much money, lie about it. Tell everyone that your little t, which is the same as everyone else's little t, is actually worth $3 billion. I mean, I guess if you went to the bathroom or answered the phone, you could lose track. Wait. If another player goes to the bathroom, make a big deal out of it.
It's too disgusting. Don't say it. It's disgusting.
Play up normal bodily functions like you're the reject 4th grader trying to impress a bunch of brain-dead 2nd graders.
I'm really rich.
Like I said, each player starts out with 400 mil and 5 trump cards. You go around the board visiting the different properties. Each time a player lands on a property, they add 10 million to the 50 million that's already inside. As you can surmise, the more players that land on a property, the higher the value of that property becomes. Also, landing on certain squares of the board will prompt adding more money to any property of the player's choice. You know, I'm no Trump, but if a player keeps adding money to a certain property, that's probably the one they want and the one you should go for. But players can only buy property if a player lands on a for sale square. When a player does so, they choose which property goes up to bid. Now, the game says you should keep your opening bid a secret, but it doesn't really matter because each player then gets a chance to increase their bid until the highest bidder remains. Standard stuff. That player then gets the property, but not the money inside. I repeat, they cannot use the money to buy other properties. It stays in the property until the end of the game. This is because sometimes a player will land on a forced sale square, which means he can choose to start the bidding on an unowned property or one owned by a player. Second verse, same as the first. And yes, the player who owns the property can also bid, but only if they really want to keep it. Otherwise, they get all the money from the sale. In fact, a player could actually stand to make a profit if they don't become the de facto highest bidder and end up paying for the property twice. Now you're probably saying to yourself, this sounds as much fun as Ben Carson's number paint. And that's true. The only real sense of strategy in the game comes from trump cards, and even then that's a stretch. You can play a trump card at the beginning of your turn, but if you do so, you forfeit your dice roll. The first kind of trump card is property bonus. If you meet the requirements in the card, you get the cash bonus. This is the only real incentive to buying property, and the only way you can actually make money to buy other properties. The more properties you own, the more of these cards you can play. Here's an interesting one. Another player pays taxes of $20 million per property to me. Okay, that's not how taxes work. Even if you do become president, you don't get that money. Taxes are used to build roads, not businesses. Although under Trump, both would be run into the ground. Then you have the forced sale card. Same as landing on a for sale square. Then you have cards that can be played during bidding. You can play as many of these cards as you like to force other players from winning a property, or get back in if one is played on you. Then there's the outside investor cards. You can play these instead of money to increase your bid by the amount on the card. This is basically as good as free money, which is weird because investors tend to want to be paid back for their investments. You think you hold on to these cards until the end of the game and they take away from your total earnings. But this is Trump! Investors don't get shit back! Like all the people that lost hundreds of thousands of dollars funding all his bogus developments that fell through, or even the small family contractors he would use to build the buildings he does own. It's funny, it's almost like he purposely sought out these smaller construction companies so he could raise the value of his property before going bankrupt and not have to pay them anything, knowing that they couldn't afford to take him to court for very long. But that would be the work of a lying, dickless scumbag thief. If you're waiting for a but, there is none. Only a but phase. After all the properties are sold comes the second phase of gameplay, the dealing phase. Or as I like to call it, why bother? At this point you can sell your property or unused trump cards to other players. Why? Why is this a thing? Again, if players have been keeping track, they have a rough estimate about how much each property is worth.
Yeah, no, Trump. I somehow doubt there's that much in that property.
And selling property bonus cards is even dumber. Why would anyone sell it for any more or any less than the value printed on it? In Monopoly, if you have at least one of 3 properties that a player wants, you have an edge in bargaining, and you can get more money than you paid for it. But here, there is no reason for a person that hasn't already won to make a deal with anyone else. And the only reason the other players would deal with each other is to screw over the first player and leech off the victory. This is Candyland for burnout baby boomers who can't count. And if you think this is how real business works, then congratulations, your degree from Trump University is in the mail, which Trump is currently being sued for. Like I said, you know where all the money is. It might have actually helped instead of money in the properties, you had these random cards with money values on them. That way it's actually a risk when you're buying or selling or trading property, like in real life. Also, this board is garbage. It's as tiny as his little fingers, and you only have 6 properties to choose from. Well, look, see how much space they take up? You obviously can't have any more. Okay, so you're ignoring my first point about the card thing? Fine. If you must use money, then at least turn the properties into the board. There, I just doubled the value, which is the first time anyone could say that about anything with Trump's name on it since 1989. And why aren't these gold? This game is obviously trying to be Monopoly, but that game has stood the test of time because it actually has variety and strategy, despite being originally made to depict the dangers of monopolies and how they eventually gridlock society. This, however, is not only an exercise in greed, but incompetence. So the name is right on the money. Hey, but if this game isn't your speed, then you should try Trump's next project, Trump's Global Aggression. Be like all of Trump's favorite war criminals.
like the quote? Did you know it was Mussolini?
It's okay to know it's Mussolini. Look, Mussolini was Mussolini.
Get rid of the First Amendment to freedom of speech and religion.
I'm going to open up our libel laws. We can sue them and win lots of money.
Cut off your country from the world in ways that will only plunge it into bankruptcy. Blame foreigners and minorities for all your problems.
They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists.
Threaten innocent women and children.
You have to take out their families. When you get these terrorists, you have to take out their families.
Brag about how much you love violence.
I love the old days. You know what they used to do to guys like that when they were in a place like this? They'd be carried out on a stretcher.
But then turn into the little rich boy pansy you've always been when threatened with a tomato.
Now, you get hit in the face with the tomato, let me tell you, with somebody with a strong arm, at least, let me tell you, it can be very damaging.
And when you finally collapse under the weight of your unjustified ego and they come to hang you in the streets, like so many others that came before you, take them all to hell with you. Trump, it's not a game.